Again, welcome everyone. My name is Mya Matos, and I am currently a senior solution engineer on the enterprise team at Toast POS, which I'm sure a lot of us have utilized to either order food or pay at restaurants. We thank you for your business. And my role pretty much encompasses being part of the sales team by being their technical counterpart. Essentially, I help the sales team make the technical argument to their customers so that they can purchase our software and our hardware. Prior to that, I've had other solution engineering roles. I come from the hospitality world, and that was part of the reason I was asked to speak with you all today. I have a pretty windy, windy kind of career that I think may mirror what some of you all's career might look like or what it can look like. And my goal today is to share my story, yes, but also to give you some takeaways around how you can pivot to power, how you can pivot to get the things that you need and that you want, rather than sort of hoping and waiting that they're going to come to you, right? So how to take it into your own hands, turn those obstacles and challenges into something that will ultimately work for you and becomes undermining and a pinning of your story as you're putting your own career and your own successes together. So Mya, I am currently a solution engineer, like I shared before. I'm a hospitality professional. I come from the hospitality world. I've worked in hotels since I was little because my parents were in hotels. So free labor to paid labor, that's my first win. So when I started working in hotels for money while I was in college, I worked in the front desk. I loved it, and then I pivoted that into a career in sales and catering, ultimately becoming a director of catering, director of sales, leading teams, and then I pivoted that into being a consultant, and then well, we'll take you down the windy, windy path that brought me here. I'm also an Army veteran. I served in the U.S. Army right out of high school. I was a power equipment and generator mechanic. So a really fun job to have for someone who loves a challenge. I didn't know it at the time that I loved the challenge or that I would love that challenge. Fun fact, I actually wanted to be in military intelligence. But when I joined the military, I was 17, and apparently they don't let 17-year-olds mess with people's heads like that. So they wouldn't let me do it. So I said I wanted to do something that was completely different then. I knew that going into the military, I didn't want a job that I can get on the outside on my own. I felt like this is something that is extreme for me. So I wanted a job that kind of matched. I wanted to be like an equalized experience. So I chose to be a power equipment generator mechanic because there weren't a lot of women in this role. And as the recruiter looked me dead in the eye and said, we don't have very many women who look like you. And I think we all know what that means, right? So I decided to take that path less traveled. And, one of the things that I will say, sort of starting into my journey, is I went into that role knowing that this was going to be a climb, right? But I figured it would be exciting to do something different. I didn't go in there to try to prove myself. My goal was not to be like, I'm a woman, Rod, I can do this. My goal was to learn something new and to have the experience that I wanted to have, which was I wanted a job that I couldn't just walk into in the civilian world. I wanted a challenge. And I went in there with the mindset of teach me something, let me have a new experience. And the fact that no one's ever done it, or very few people have at that point, that wasn't my concern. That wasn't my burden to bear. I was here to get an experience, and I was decidedly going to get it. So, careers. Da, da, da. I feel like starting from high school, I always thought careers look like the arrow on the left, right? You start here, and then you work really hard, then you go here, and maybe you pivot a little bit over, and then you kind of have this kind of upward trajectory of your career, right? Where things are, you do what you're supposed to do, this is what you learn. You do what you're supposed to do, you stay in school, you do the things, you get the grades, you get promoted. I don't know if that's ever been true, to be frank with you, because it's never been true to me. That's not been my experience. My career looks like the one on the right. It is windy, windy, messy, but if you notice where that arrow is at the very top, it's still pointing upward, right? I consider the beautiful story that is my career to be a beautiful disaster. But also, a windy, windy career that's still pointing upward, because every step that I took along the way allowed for me to learn something new. So if we take it all the way back, this is going to be funny for any of you who are currently in tech or that know what I do for a living now that you do. When I was in high school, I went to an inner city high school. It had a computer magnet program, and I hated it. I hated all of it. I thought computers were a fluke. I thought that there was no way people were going to work in computers. Like, what? Um, I never thought that people would spend their days in front of a computer, let alone work on computer things. Kind of aging myself, I think, at this point. But I learned that in order for me to stay in this computer magnet and graduate, I only had to take X number of credits in computer to be able to graduate. So I was like, all right, fine. This is great because now I don't have to pick one thing. Like some of my team, my classmates chose, graphic arts or programming or, Cisco networking. And I was like, I want all of it. Give me the buffet because I don't think any of this is going to last anyway. so So I took the buffet. 1 year I took graphic arts for a year. 1 year I took programming for a year. That was the worst year. The next year I took Cisco networking, and I liked it so much I went back and did the next level up. So I met my requirements to graduate. But unbeknownst to me, it gave me a pretty good foundation for technology. That was completely unintentional, by the way. And I built on that. So when we talk about how to pivot to win, right? Make a plan, learn from others, be yourself. This sounds so simple. I want to take you through how I did that for myself. So coming out of high school, again, my plan was I need to graduate. I picked all the different classes that I thought might be somewhat okay. And then I graduated. I went into the military. And when I came out of the military, I didn't really have much of an idea what I wanted to do. I went to college. I studied psychology, finally got a chance to get into the brain. I did sales, retail sales. I sold cell phones at Best Buy, which, I got to pull on my technology education because I had to learn how all the cell phones worked and all of that. But in that time frame, I learned a couple of very important things. One was the power of a signature. If you've ever signed a cell phone contract, especially back in the day, if any of you had Sprint, I'm sorry. If your parents had Sprint, I'm sorry. It was tough. Like you understood the power of a signature. Saying no with a smile, right? Finding workarounds and solutions for people, learning new things very quickly. Technology at that point in time was changing so fast, and I had to learn how to learn things very fast and then be able to explain them to people who came into the stores. And then I learned what customer service really looks like, right? Especially when partnered with sales and marketing. I used to work at Nordstrom, and the way that Nordstrom manages customer service with the notes that they send you and the email targeting and all of that was to me so interestingly new, right? To match my experience in customer success, customer stories, and service with this marketing piece, because you're going to get me back in the store and now I feel welcome here and I know my friend is there, and so that experience was something that I really took with me from there. I then went into working in hospitality, started at the front desk. I then missed sales. I like a thrill of the chase. So I started working in sales in hospitality. I then merged into catering and events because very much like my experience with the military rather, catering and events was an uphill battle. It was considered to be one of the most challenging roles. Very few people did it and very less people enjoyed it. Not a lot of training, very high stakes, very stressful. It wasn't exactly looked upon as the crown jewel of a hotel. And so I was like, yeah, that's the job for me. Give me that one. um, and I did, and during that time, because catering sales had not a lot of support, I had to make my own graphics, my own flyers. But I already knew how to do that because I took that year-long class, right? So I understood typography, I understood pictures and colors and everything. And so I was able to do a pretty good job of that and doing all those things for myself. And then when I found that when the hotel group that I was working with no longer gave me opportunities to grow, so I ran out of things to do here, I had to make a decision for myself, and I chose to grow myself. And that was the beginning of making that plan, right? And deciding I need to grow for myself. I need to prove to myself that I am actually really good at what I'm doing here. So I put myself in what was at the time the number 3 most most dense hotel area, which was the DC metropolitan area. At the time, it was top 3 in the country for the number of hotels. The reason I chose DC is because there was a lot of competition. And I was like, if I'm gonna be the best, I gotta beat the best. So I'm gonna go where the best are. New York was not for me though, because no offense to New York, but that was not my place. New York's still number one, and they can have it. So I wanted to put myself where competition was fierce. I validated and I tested, and boy, was I tested. I learned so much well beyond the hospitality world. I had to learn how to negotiate salaries. I had to learn how to hire people. I had to learn how to position myself for promotion and projects. I had to really play that game because now I'm playing with the big fish, right in the big ocean as opposed to the smaller pond that I was in. I had to learn how to deliver succinct reports to superiors, how to lead people directly and indirectly, because I came from having a banquet team of like 3 to it can be upwards of 20, 30. We might hire outside staff, becomes 40, 50. So I had to really pull on the levers of the leadership that I learned in the military, as well as the skills that I have from hospitality, and really put them to the test. So what did I learn there? I had to learn how to lead teams, train teams that were sometimes not in my direct command, which anyone who's been in the military, or if you have a leadership experience, you know that the people who report to you can be challenging to lead, certainly, because leading is challenging. It is much harder, in my opinion, to lead volunteers and people who don't directly report to you. So I had to learn how to grow that skill and be able to influence them into being led by me. In that role, I figured out how to generate more revenue, how to do the job even faster. And then I figured it out. I grew out of it. I got bored. So I took my training skills on the road and I started training other hotels and helping them figure out the things, right? And how they can do things better. So that was my infusing, making that plan. My plan was I needed to play with the best. I learned from the best. And keeping myself focused during that process was where I was able to come to the realization of, I figured it out. I'm now bored. It's time for me to move on. If anyone is a Hamilton fan here that teach me how to say goodbye, like I think that's one of the things I'm really good at, is knowing when it's time. Like there's nothing else left for me here. All I can learn how to do here at this point is more, and I want better. So I had to move on from that role. I then grew into other hospitality roles, and it became part of my success was teaching other people how to be successful. So I thought, find a career for myself. I'm going to be a consultant. Consulting is what I'm going to do. And I did that for a while. I consulted hotels all over the country and restaurants and things like that. And I loved it. It was great work. But then I came across a new puzzle. There's a piece of software that was new in the hotel world and was making people so nervous they were quitting their jobs. And I was pulled back into it again. That 17-year-old version of myself that saw that challenge was like, ooh, like consulting's going really well for me, but man, I've got a challenge here. I'm also someone who's really empathetic, and the thought of people being so scared and so nervous about software or anything for that matter, that they were quitting their jobs and or not being successful really did not sit well with me. These are the people that I work alongside on a regular basis, right? My job is to help them be successful and to learn that something that they were asked to do was keeping them from being successful. That didn't sit well with me, right? That's that be yourself part of this. It's not who I am. It doesn't align with my values. So I took the challenge. I learned how to use the software. The software was built on Salesforce. And in turn, that means I learned how to use Salesforce. And I became a trainer for the company. Eventually, they reached out to me and they were like, hey, we keep seeing your name popping up. People are like, hey, Maya's really helping me do this. Would you like to come and work for us? And I was like, sure. At the time, I felt like I was interested in technology, but I didn't feel like it was a career I could actually have because I wasn't a designer, I wasn't a programmer, I had very limited experience in technology. So I thought, wow, this would be a really great way for me to step into a technology role. I'll be a trainer. So I did that for a while and then pivoted that into what I would consider to be the most pivotal turning point in my career was during the pandemic. Like for a lot of people, I was blessed enough to still have a job, but I still wanted more for myself. Right? I was so curious about the technology and I was like, oh, I still want more. So I took that time that we had, the thing that we all say we always wish we had more time. I took that time and I focused heavy on learning all things technology. And then the thing that I did that I would say is the most crucial point, turning point, was that I sought out mentors and I allowed myself to be vulnerable with those mentors. I told them, I have no idea what I'm doing. I know I want to step into something bigger. I feel like I can do it. I don't know how to do it. Will you help me? Will you get to know me so that you can help guide me? Because that's the important part. Something when you ask a mentor or a sponsor, even, like, what should I do next? It's another thing to say, I need you to get to know me so that you can then make a recommendation for me that will make sense. Like, I want you to get to know me, and it requires for you to open up a little bit and let them see you. And for anyone that was that interacted with my LinkedIn post, you'll know what's coming up here. Is he told me that I should share my story, and I thought that man was crazy. I was like, okay, of all the mentors, I found the one that's, what are you talking about? Nobody cares. Growing up, first generation, college graduate, high school graduate, even. No, divorce stories don't matter, right? And I was like, first of all, I don't want to tell a woe is me story. We've had enough of those things. I don't want a woe is me story. I don't have a woe is me story. He's like, no, you don't. You have an incredible story and people need to know about it. And I was like, I deliver results. That's what I do. And he's like, no. I was like, what? So he pulled that out of me. And honestly, now I cannot shut up about it. Your story matters so much. It will be the thing that will align you to your next role. It will be the thing that will help you be successful in your next role. That was the most important turning point in learning and being mentored, right? So he helped me develop a winning strategy, right? Beyond telling my story, once we got to that part, and he's like, well, I need to know who you are. He then said, well, what are the facts? What do you know how to do? What do you enjoy doing? What do you hate doing? That was the most important one, you guys. When you're trying to think of what job you want to go into, think of the things that you love, think of the things that you hate. What are the things that you will never, ever, 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 ever want to do again? That needs to be on the list. So you can use that to narrow down the types of roles. Then we try to figure out what can I leverage, right? What skills do I have in my bag, right? I consider myself to be a collector of skills, experiences, and stories. That is who Mya is, right? And so I was like, well, I've got a lot of skills. My bag is kind of heavy. I've got skills, sir. These questions are what really helped guide me into that next chapter of my life, honestly, in my career. What can I leverage? What are my gaps? Then how am I going to go about filling those gaps, right? Which of those gaps really matter, right? Is an asterisk I would put there, because just because I don't know how to do it doesn't mean it's actually crucial to the job that I'm going into. I can learn it. I've never ever applied to a job that I fully qualify for, generally speaking, and I don't ever encourage anybody to do that. You should always have room to grow. There should always be runway for you. So keep that in mind. Like, don't call yourself out of roles simply because you don't meet every single little checkbox, because some of those are just wants, not needs, and you should always have runway. And I always bring that up, like, oh, I'm excited to do this job because while I bring all of these things to the table, I really want to learn and focus on these other ones, and I'd love the opportunity to get to do that here. I call it out. You don't have to tell me that I have the gaps. I'm going to tell you myself. And not only am I going to tell you, I'm going to tell you that I'm excited about it. That's what makes me want to do the job. Because if I already can meet the job A through Z, I've outgrown it. And we've already heard about my story when I outgrow jobs. I move, right? So something to keep in mind, this winning strategy, definitely a takeaway for anyone who's considering a career change or even within their own career, right? To figure out, am I in the right place? How can I grow from here? You have to decipher what is true, what's going to help you out in the long run, right? What are the things, the facts? How will that help you? What can you leverage? And then what are the gaps? From there, we got to learn how to pivot. And I chose this graphic on purpose because pivoting really is moving against the grain. You have to be willing to move against the grain. You have to be courageous. You have to unlearn some things, right? Those of us that learn, get a good job, keep your head down. Like, you're going to have to unlearn a little couple of those things, be a little bit louder, step into it scared. I do a lot of things scared, but I do them anyway. And I laugh at myself for being scared while doing it. Networking, everyone always says, make sure you network, always connect. But how do you do it, right? I gave you an example of finding yourself a mentor. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Be curious about them. Let them be curious about you. And if you find a mentor who is not interested in getting to know you, then maybe that becomes an acquaintance and a resource, and maybe you move them out of that network, a mentor column, right? And that's okay. Same thing with a sponsor, right? If you're saying, here's what I'd like to do, here are my gaps, this is where I am, I'm looking for opportunities, and where can you point me in the right direction? And sometimes they just don't have a resource for you, but if they generally don't really seem interested in it, then it's okay, like move on. There are people who are more than willing to help you, so keep that in mind, that you've got resources and acquaintances, mentors and sponsors, and you need all of them, all right, to be part of your executive board as you grow into and throughout your career. And then you have to develop the elevator pitch. This is your story, right? I gave you the kind of longer version of that story. You have to fill that in. The short version of my story is Mya is an infinitely curious individual who collects skills, experiences, and stories. And I use those to be able to help people make decisions. I love helping people. And the way that I help them is by filling my bucket first, going out, trying everything, seeing everything, and then learning so that I can teach others. Okay, elevate your knowledge. You should find those gaps, fill them. Take the time. I know we don't ever wish to have another pandemic again, but take the time to learn the things. If there's a gap and it's going to be crucial, and you find someone as a hiring manager in that role, and they're like, oh yeah, you absolutely need to have this. This is going to be like what's going to differentiate you. Then take the time to learn it. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it because it's what you want to do. And these are my pivoting tools for you. Take these with you. The thing that made me most successful in all of my pivots, you saw it from the very beginning, is to be yourself. I call it knowing and embracing your values. You have to know your values. I always say I live a very expensive lifestyle. It's not because I buy things, it's because I live by my values and I do not waver from them. When there's no opportunity left, when there's something for me to grow into, I move on. If it in any moment it violates my ethics, I move on. Justice is one of my very important values. If at any point in time you're requiring me to do something that would be unjust to other people or would harm others, I'm moving on, right? Authenticity, accountability, curiosity, those are the things that are important to me. And if my role doesn't allow me to do that, or you're trying to stuff that down, and it's the only way I'm going to be successful, for me, it's time to go. So it's an expensive lifestyle, but I think it's worth it. You're going to have to learn to be courageous. Like I said, I'll learn some things. Know that you're going to be the villain in someone's story. We all know what evil is. Sometimes the good people can be evil. The good people that sit back and don't step into the fold, they can be unintentionally harmful. So decide who you're going to be and be that. Consider how experiences will shape you. As I was going in and setting a plan for myself, I thought about who that person that grows into that role is going to be. How will they be successful? Who will they become? What kind of person does that thing that I want to do? And how will I have to change to do that? And I commit to that, and that's who I become. Network with intention. Like I said, be sure that you let people get to know you. Share the things that scare you, right? So that they can help you work through them. And then lastly, practice self-compassion. You will never find a harsher critic probably than yourself. So you have to be open with the things that you're not good at. But be kind to yourself, right? Have compassion with the fact that you're learning something new. You will wobble. It will not be pretty, and that's okay. I love playing Mario Kart. Anyone who knows me knows I love me some Mario Kart. I am terrible at it. I am really bad. I enjoy how bad I am at Mario Kart because it gives me the opportunity to be kind with myself, right? To think. It lets me connect with my friends in a different way, in ways that the day doesn't matter anymore. I can just reflect. I'm like, wow, look at an amazing thing we're doing. We're adults. I'm playing video games. That's awesome. It gives me a moment to reflect, so I do it, even though I'm terrible at it. Find something like that for yourself that gives you that moment of solace, because when you're embracing on a journey like my graphic over here, like it's hard. And if you're taking on challenges that are different than what you're doing, it's hard. So you have to give yourself some grace. I'll leave you with my favorite quotes here. I'll leave it on the screen because it's my absolute favorite thing, is how I've chosen to live my life. I would much rather be a superb meteor, every atom of me a magnificent glow. We all know what meteors do, they explode, right? Rather than a sleeping permanent planet. I want to make noise, and I encourage all of you to make noise in ways that may be scary, but that will yield you the success that you want. And that is all that I have for you. So we've got about 2 minutes here. Any questions for me? Finally, somebody else is bad at Mario Kart. You got to find me on LinkedIn so we can be bad together. We'll just be playing at like that 50 cc speed. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I can share the code again. I'll put it back on the screen. Uh, how do I like my current role? Yeah, I love my current role. My current role allows for me to connect with hospitality and bridge the gap between not the gap, but the worlds between hospitality and technology. I'm learning brand new software. The current software that I work in is Android based, which is really different for me, and I'm really excited and learning about that all day, every day. Let's see. I don't think I see any other questions. I think we've got about just shy of a minute left. Very impressed I was able to shut up in 30 minutes. Look at me. I'm usually very verbose, so in these kind of sessions. So thank you all of you for attending. If there's any questions, I put it my LinkedIn QR code on the screen. I'll share it again. You can also, I'm sure you can look me up on the app, and I'm happy to speak with you guys any point in time. Any questions that you have, feel free to send them my way. You can also block time on my calendar on my LinkedIn if you just want to have a conversation. If I can connect you to anyone, help you figure out your career, please do. I'm more than happy to help. I know how hard it is to do hard things, but I also know how good it feels to do hard things. So I will encourage all of you to do that. How did I build such a great personal brand? Ooh, Jose, that's a whole story. Being true to my values is a short one. Facing them and knowing that I was going to face an uphill battle in order to continue being who I am. It's my guiding principle. And we learn, don't leave the good jobs. Like, I leave the good jobs if it means I have to change who I am. And it's only helped me grow as a person. So yay. I hope you all take a look at the recording and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all for attending. Have a great day. And for anyone in Florida, be safe. Bye everyone.